on to our next session. This is a conversation that sits right at the intersection of public health, lived experience, and the business of building access where it has long been missing. It's about what happens when women's health is treated not as a niche, but as a priority worth clinical focus and serious capital.
To moderate this discussion, please welcome Nasrin Sultana to the stage. And joining her are two women bringing very different but equally powerful perspectives to this conversation. Dr. Manika Khanna, founder, CEO, and chairperson, Gaudium IVF, and Sonia Dasgupta, CEO, JM Financial Investment Banking. Nasrin, over to you.
Is my mic working? Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Forbes India WPAR 2026. Am I not audible? Hello? Hello? Audible? Yeah. So before I begin, I must share that this session is especially meaningful for me as I've recently delivered my first child. And stepping back, I am right into the middle of a conversation talking about women's health, fertility, and women's health innovation. So I think this is a very important topic for the capital markets also. And in this conversation, we will try to explore how India's capital markets can actually help normalize fertility care in India and pave the way for the broader acceptance of women's health care. And to discuss this and take the conversation further, I'm thrilled to welcome my two eminent panelists, Manika Khanna, who's the chairperson and founder of Gaudium IVF, and Sonia Dasgupta. She is the MD and CEO of investment banking at JM Financials. So welcome on the panel. And I'll start with Sonia first. Gaudium IVF, of course, was path-breaking when it came to the capital markets. How did the capital markets see fertility care as a sector?
So first of all, thank you, Nasrin, and hearty congratulations on your baby. It's lovely to be here among such high-achieving women, and we've had some wonderful, excellent panelists before us. So, Manika, we have very high standards to keep up to. First of all, I think we are unfortunately starting it at the wrong end. We should be first starting it from the entrepreneur who has actually made a capital market debut. And I think we all owe her a loud round of applause.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because Gaudium is only the 4th listed company in the world which has done IVF. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And the first in India. Unfortunately, the capital markets and everything I do is very boring, not at all glamorous. And it only goes by numbers, the growth, the returns. So it's pretty, unbiased in terms of what they like. So any business that shows sustainable growth with good margins and good return on capital is something that investors will rush to. And I think ART, as it's called, assisted reproductive technology, is one of the fields just given the sheer mass and demand pull because of demographics, women getting educated and therefore wanting to choose, having assisted reproductive into their lives. And of course, the stresses of modern day life, which is bringing to fore science and technology being used for something which has had its origins from the days of Ramayana and Mahabharata, of infertility, right? There you had some sage who gave them some fruit, which ultimately was all ART, right?
Sperm donation.
So I think it's very good that we are bringing such topics to the fore and normalizing a lot of things that science can cure. And of course, there are many benefits of investors jumping in, wherein you have ability to scale things, have better scaled infrastructure, more safety, more ethical practices that will get into regulation. So I think it's a win-win having more such platforms where IVF actually transcends into more like a women's healthcare infrastructure play. And makes good sense for the investors as well as for the end consumer.
Right. So I'll come to Dr. Khanna now. And what kind of signals do you think your IPO had sent to investors about women health innovation? Because, of course, it was first of its kind. It was difficult for the market to understand your business. But what kind of signals it sent to the investors?
Well, initially when I started talking, it was so new for them that, some of them kind of brushed it off, that whether, we will be able to successfully go public. But then we met people, luckily for me, I met investors who had vision, who could see what this industry is all about. And yes, we made it just a day before the war broke out. On the 27th of February, we successfully listed. And I would say that the markets have really welcomed us with open arms, because our stock was 50% up in the month of March. So I was like, even I couldn't understand what's happening. But yes, it's been an interesting journey. And there was so much curiosity, The good part is that when I started doing the road shows, and till we reached the listing moment, me and my team must have done 200 plus, TV and online and articles. So imagine the kind of, awareness about the industry that went forward. People realized that what a hub and spoke model is, how an asset-light, IVF is an asset-light industry, how you can scale it up. And it has come at a time when our country, for the first time, the fertility rate has dropped down below the replacement level. So 15 to 20% of 1.5 billion of us are infertile. Can you imagine? And right now, only 2% of that is coming forward for treatment. So 98% is an untapped market. Needs awareness, needs access, and that is how capital markets help us. Because when capital markets put in the funds, we are able to scale it up rapidly, maintaining the global level care, so we don't compromise, and of course in a very regulated and ethical manner. I think the women of our country deserve it. And, my favorite line is that everyone deserves a one of their own. How does it matter that we are the most populous nation in the world? जिसका बेबी नहीं है, उसके लिए नहीं है, वो एक बहुत ज़रूरी है. So, yeah.
So there's a lot of social stigma also with assisted reproduction or with fertility care. My question to both of you actually, do you think if listing of a fertility care center or a fertility business really kind of helps to remove this kind of social stigma and build more scale in the business, because you have got institutional money flowing in now and things will get more organized?
definitely. I think maybe we live in a very different part of the country than the rest of the country, because all the next gen in the places that I work, in my own family, all the millennial girls, when I hear them talk, the first thing they are talking is freeze your eggs. Okay. And I think that's very powerful, right? When a woman, doesn't have this psychological stress that my, biological clock is ticking, and can choose to delay having a child, I think that's wonderful. If the more such companies tap the capital markets, the more there is dissemination of this information and normalization of doing this. Of course, I'm saying if the flip side is if people, the listed companies go overboard and in the quest for getting better pricing, do unethical practices, that's the only thing we need to guard against. But I think, like Manika was saying, we are far away from that, right? If we still have so much under penetration. So I think education of best use of ART in a safe and ethical manner is the need of the hour. And I think it's very important to normalize this. And, all of us, including the media, has a great role to play here.
Yeah. So, I would just add that, like she talked about egg freezing, I call it reproductive freedom. So, we were talking about that in a journey we have to take a break. What I say to young girls is you don't need to. Just preserve your fertility at the right time, and it gives you reproductive freedom. You can choose to become mothers at a convenient time, because we go through college and then we go through our early career stages, and that's the time you're supposed to also be bearing children. So those two times clash, and if we fall out at that time, then it's difficult for us to scale the ladder. Those are the odds stacked against us. Like when you were saying, my daughter is doing space engineering in US, and she's the only girl in the class, and the boys hang out at night, and it's like kind of difficult. So yes, we still have barriers to break, but I would say that what Forbes is doing with this W Power is, these are things which are kind of liberating. Because we see this list and we know that many more girls can become this. And also, I feel that we women who have the capability should also create an atmosphere for other women. So for example, we employ 90% of our staff is women across all 36 locations of Gaudium. So the stigma is decreasing significantly. There were days, in the clinic when, in 2009, when I started 17 years back, so a couple would walk in and you would tell the husband that you also have to be tested, and he would say, I'm completely fine, why do I need to be tested? So from those days, at least we've come to days when a couple walks in, most of the men do know that, they contribute 50% to the infertility. And entering the capital markets, within 2 months, we've got so much exposure to talk about it. So I think it will definitely have an impact.
Is it more accepted now, or?
Yes, it is more accepted now. And, as she said, it is the 4th company in the world to be listed. So some of the companies like Monash IVF, they've built an empire out of it post-listing. So I think you normalize it more. You make it the couple approaching for infertility will feel less hesitant, because the more it is talked about in media, the more normal it becomes. Celebrities, when they use it and they talk about it, it's great. Because, the woman sitting alone who is dreaming to be a mother, then feels that, yes, why not? I can also go and approach a clinic and get it done.
Let's talk about regulation now, and that's very important when we talk about assisted reproduction. And what, according to you, will government support and regulatory support really help building our investor confidence and a patient's confidence in the sector? And this question is to both of you because you're dealing with investor and you're also dealing with patients.
Very true. So regulation is very, very important, and especially in building investor confidence, because as Sonia correctly said, that there are a lot of players where unethical things are being done, and that, that is something investors don't like. They don't want to risk it where you're not following regulations. So the most welcome thing happened in 2022 when the ART bill was introduced. Before 2022, this was an unregulated industry. And now as the government is in the process of implementing it, it's in various stages of implementation across different states. But when implemented completely, it will help ensure that global level standardized care is available and nobody is cheated, So, and secondly, if the government can also create an atmosphere that insurance companies should come forward and cover this, it'll be great. Because, if your fertility rate is coming below the replacement level, we don't want to wake up as late as Japan, where they're now incentivizing to have babies. So I think it's a wake-up call that we wake up in time and
What about investor confidence in this?
So I think investor confidence will always be in this, according to me, will be hinged on ethical practices, right? Because you don't want to invest in a company which is doing the wrong things or doing the right things in the wrong way. And this, like anything to do with healthcare or pharma, is something which is life-threatening, right? So they are extremely, extremely careful about where they are investing. And I think the regulations help make it easy to have the guardrails of transparency, of data disclosures, of how success is measured, how it's disseminated. And I think more important than the investor is actually the patients, or that there is safety, and because for the investors what is more important is the scalability, right? So like in anything to do with healthcare, trust is the most important. And it's very important that a few bad players don't derail a fabulous opportunity and platform which actually gives women so much power in their lives. And I think to your earlier questions and pulling some points from the earlier panelists, I think it's up to all of us to break that cycle of stigma and educate everyone that touches our lives, not only in our strata, but also, we have support staff and, other people, normalizing it also for them, that it's okay, and educating people that, and especially for that strata of society, having things which are well regulated is very essential for their safety.
You mentioned, Sonia, about the global pattern, and there are only few companies globally also in the IVF sector which have gone public. Is there any lesson that we can draw from that? And why do you think there are so fewer number of companies in this women healthcare sector or fertility sector, if we can really pinpoint there?
So I wouldn't know why there are such few globally, but I can tell you there are many in India now. And there are, the size of this was like $1 billion, and we are looking in the next 4-5 years for it to become $4 to $5 billion. There's a lot of private equity money chasing good franchises, and those franchises are scaling extremely well. I think it's the power and the pull of the demographic dividend that we have in India that is being capitalized on. And I only hope and pray that there are no accidents along the way, and this gives a wonderful tool for us to make women's health front and center in the work that we do.
So Dr. Khanna, if I have to ask you, how do you think, or how many years will it take for women's health care or fertility care to become part of the mainstream or organized sector and really contribute to the economy?
Yeah, that's an excellent point you've made. So, so when we fly, they say, ki, put the mask first onto yourself and then help the next person. So when you're enabling a woman's health, you are enabling an entire family's health. Because it has been in our tradition that women, our mothers, grandmothers, they kept neglecting which seemingly were smaller problems till they really became huge problems and come forward with them, taking care of the family. So prioritizing women's health is very important. It is important two ways. One, of course, you're doing a great job if you contribute to the women healthcare industry because you are uplifting half the population. So the healthier the population, the more stronger becomes the economy. And second, it is economically also a hugely scalable business because you're catering to half the population. So women health need to take priority center stage. It has already started. And even we, diversifying, we are already working on how important certain supplements are. So many Indian women, almost everyone is iron deficiency, vitamin D deficient. So, how these need to be replenished in time, how cancer need to be detected early. So all these issues, things have started, but I think it will take another 3-4 years till it becomes mainstream. And of course, we will try to contribute as much as we can.
What do you think, Sonia?
So I think women need to make health at every stage of their life front and center, right? And I think, and I always have told my team that you don't need to shy away from ever coming forth and speaking to your male bosses or even your female bosses, of course, easier, but even to your male bosses, if you have menstrual cramps and you can't work, or, because I do know some women really go through very difficult times during those times of the month. And I say it's completely fine. Because and I think I was on a panel last year and I said the same thing, that you will be surprised, and I have no disrespect to any men in the audience. It's, men come up to me in an important meeting and say, I want to go home when there's a deliverable. And I'm like, why? Because my wife has a headache, okay? And we all applaud it saying, oh wow, he's such a loving family man. Why can't women just come and say, I have a headache, I want to go home, right? Just normalize it. It's fine. I mean, men are doing it all the time. So you don't need to hide, the fact that you're not well, you have menstrual cramps, or, you are really feeling low or depressed. Because I know that, when I was much younger, I used to go through a lot of mood swings just before my, menstrual cycle. And I knew it's happening because of hormonal changes, but I just couldn't articulate it. And if I had to live my life again, I would walk up and say, I need to go home. And I think we as bosses, as women bosses, need to be more appreciative of that also. And I think we need to train our, the men in our lives to also be accommodative about these issues and normalize women's health, whether it's day to day and of course the much bigger complications that doctor has just spoken about. Respect that and make it an issue that it's not an okay issue, or it's not a small issue. If someone is suffering with pain because of hormonal or anything, we need to give it the respect and the space they want. Because I can bet you, a woman is going to go home, and at least I have experienced in my team, who goes home saying she's got menstrual cramps and can't work anymore. She is going to get up at 1 in the night and see that something is incomplete, finish the work and be delivered to my desk before she comes. And I have seen that repeatedly. So kudos to the women who are so sincere in their work, right? And they are also driven, and therefore we need to give them some slack if they are suffering physically. Just because I may have not had menstrual cramps, I cannot tell as a woman boss, kuch nahi hai, it's okay, learn to tolerate it. No. It's not okay. All of us as women bosses need to respect that every woman is different, her constitution is different, and need to give them that slack time to recover physically, mentally, and be the support that we would have liked in our younger age if we had gone through that.
Right. Like in our earlier panel, Kavita had mentioned about breaking the cycle. Probably is what you are recommending, that we should prioritize our health. Dr. Khanna, I want to come to you and want to know about what is the rural India stats here when we talk about assisted reproduction. Because urban, there's a lot of conversation. We write about those kind of facilities that is available. But rural India is somewhere not heard, or we are not aware of what's happening there.
Yeah. So you will be surprised to know that infertility is not a thing just of the metros or the tier 1, tier 2 cities. It is equally prevalent in tier 3, and almost 10% infertility is there down in our villages. And that is why I said that access matters. So the more hubs we open, and so what hubs are mainstream center where you have heavy infrastructure, and spokes are smaller centers where you can reach remote places. Like in Bihar, we are in Motihari and Darbhanga, and also villages have access there. So, this concept that it is not there in the villages is wrong. It is equally there.
But are they really opting for assisted reproduction?
They are. You will be surprised to know that they are well aware, thanks to the social media access and the digital access that our country has now. They are aware. In fact, once I walked into my Patna center on a regular visit, and there were some village women sitting. And the moment I walked, they started touching my feet. And I was like, what's happened? And they said, हम आपको Facebook पर देखे हैं बोलते हुए. It was so heartwarming, So this business of creating life is satisfaction at another level, When you have couples struggling for 23 years of marriage, they get a baby, and then they come for that photograph with you. No amount of anything can match that gratification. And as Sonia ji rightly pointed out, that women at all stages need to be supported. And I'm very proud that it starts right in your family. So my son is coming up with a startup where the entire focus is women health, adolescence, PCOS, period pains, and then pregnancy, and late to menopause as well. Menopause is highly under-talked about, and we all suffer and don't come out with it. So yeah, I think the seeds are grown. It starts right inside the family.
Right. Sonia, I want to know from you, do you think there is enough government support when we talk about innovation in fertility in women?
So I think right now the government has many other things which are more like getting, LPG gas to the relevant people. So yes, there's always more that the government can do at any stage, right? But I think a lot can be done by the private sector, okay? And there is, like I said, there is a lot of private capital waiting by the wings to invest. So I don't think there is a dearth of incentive from the private sector. But I think what the government, which is the role of only a government, can play is to ensure that, there is good regulation, there is good governance, so that there are no malpractices. I think that's a very important role. So while, the ART Act is there, we have to make sure that it is also enforced, yes, and there is good supervision. I think that's a role only a government can play. Like I said, anyone wants capital, come to JM, we'll get you the right capital. There's a lot of capital waiting in the wings for good entrepreneurs. But I think regulation and making sure that ethical practices are followed, there is safety, there is no malpractices being done, there is no misstatement, there are no false promises being made. I think those are very important things where we have to lean on the government to make sure it's done.
So beyond the IPO, and I'm going back to the IPO again because that's where the conversation started. Beyond the IPO, do you think there is enough money on the table to kind of broaden the investment in women fertility business? And this question is to both of you.
Yes, as she pointed out, why many could not have made it was how strong is your organizational structure? How institutionalized are you? So if you are an SOP-driven organization, you are ensuring a patient-first policy. Your practices are transparent. The success rates you quote are the actual success rates. I think when the investors or the markets see that, they do not hesitate. They do not hesitate to give you the money. And that is why not just fertility care, my take is that the entire women health sector, a lot of investment can come in. We just have to create the right models for taking in that investment and then ensure that the right practices keep happening. Because, in ours is the business of life. So in life, you can't tinker with it. So that's very important. If you take care of that, I don't think there should be dearth of money supporting. But yes, you don't have to give up. And I started with an 800 square feet facility, all with just my savings, 17 years back. And some people laughed that how can an IVF be built in an 800 square feet facility. But yes, here we are. We are at 36 locations in the country today. So yeah.
So I think talking about life and making money out of it doesn't sound, it doesn't sound good. But unfortunately, I'm in the finance business and we always talk about returns and money. So I have to, since you're prodding me to go into the not very nice way of talking, because half my family is doctors and half is in finance. So, the finance people always look down on in the family functions. So, but I think women and childcare today, for those who don't know, is the hottest sector in hospital and healthcare, right? So if you pick up any medium which talks about the deals, the largest number of transactions that are happening in the hospital sector as single specialty is women and childcare. And again, to talk in a very business way jargon, and my apologies, it doesn't sound good, but once you have an IVF patient, you have a patient for life. Because then you then have them for the child, a gynac, pediatrician, you have for child care, and then, the sunset years of life, which is, menopausal and thereafter. So, you have a patient for life, and, that's, in business world, it's a great LTV, lifetime value of a patient that you catch or a customer that you catch. So I think there is no doubt that there is a lot of interest in this segment. And, large scale players like Gaudium, Indra IVF, we all know, and many others will soon be public. So, we will have investors who have invested in private equity and then getting a listing opportunity, exit, make returns, and recycle that again to the next set of private capital. So I think that's a great virtuous cycle we'll get into.
One funny thing I have to share. So when I was doing these road shows, it was about, you talked, your family as doctors and investment people. So bringing medicine and finance together. So when I was doing my investor pitches, so I was like with all jest, I was telling about the whole business model. And then I was talking about EBITDAs and PATs and stuff like that. So he just stopped me and he said, sorry, what is your qualification? So, I had to tell him, I'm a doctor by qualification.
I'll take that as a closing remark, Dr. Khanna. So thank you so much for being really interesting conversation, and thank you to the audience for a very engaging conversation and engaging with my panelists. Let's try to push more boundaries and invest in women's healthcare. Thank you.